This university works, we work on time. Um, Thank you for coming. This, as you know, is a colloquium, and all classes are put off for this 1.5 hour. And where do students go in the interlude is for them to decide. But yeah, one thing that the audience, the size of the audience is showing is that they're not interested in story of social intervention, promotion of a self-reliant organic farming in Haryana. That's not what they're interested in. Yeah, you are. So thank you so much, Indira, and others who are here. Grateful that you have all come. Only by way of introducing the speaker, because I do not really know why this old friend of mine has wandered off so far into organic farming and knows a whole lot of concepts like self-reliant organic farming and stuff like that. I don't. My association with him starts somewhere in the late 70s. He turns up at Panjab University for doing an honors program in economics, and I am already a registered researcher in history. And together we have seen in the world at that time, Margaret Thatcher kind of people rise to power, and neoliberalism then acquires the kind of legitimacy that it has, that everybody who is not a neoliberal is a, in our country it could even be anti-national after a little while. But then we have seen those phases grow in the politics of the world. We have seen the breakdown of, and worried at the breakdown of the Soviet bloc together. We have seen the rise and the super rise of the Indian right in India's politics, and have worried about it together. But where we diverge is that he is an economics wala. He used to be teaching those hardcore economic courses like microeconomics and mathematics and statistics in the university where I used to be working before I got here, which was Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. But besides that, he'd always been the kind of a guy who wanted to intervene in anything that was happening in society. So whether it was the literacy movements that were taking place in the early 90s, he was a part of them. In the late 90s, there were the self-help groups who had started off. This guy became a part of some self-help groups and was trying to teach women in villages of Haryana how to make soap, etc., besides saving. Then, in 2009, he found this new calling of his, which is organic farming. Why he has walked so far, and why he has been forever a wanderer, he would know, and he'd probably sometime tell us why he is so. But yeah, in terms of his academic qualifications, he has worked for his MA economics honors in Panjab University. He has an MPhil from the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, and he has a PhD from JNU and he was working on the class character of the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union was saying there are no classes here. We are, or at least we are trying to banish them. So that's the man for you. And one last thing, he now works with people who are absolutely different from the way that this guy is. His way of thinking is that if he was traveling from sector 14 to sector 17 in a bus in which he could not buy his ticket, that's the story that goes about him among our friends, Then the next time if he travels, and I'm talking of a city called Chandigarh where the whole city is divided into sectors, so the next time he'll buy 2 tickets. He's that kind of a guy. But he works with people, he was telling me now, who, when they went for a rally, because he works with farmers, who went for a rally, They were surprised that this guy had bought a ticket. They said, "ये थोड़ी होता है, वो तो rally के लिए जा रहे हैं हम लोग." So when you go for a rally, you don't buy tickets. So, so somewhere the fellow has a Gandhian living in him, and living in him, actually, So the floor is yours, Rajinder.
So you really know why I am here. My intervention that I'm going to speak about is neither really unique nor very successful, but I have a friend here who insisted that I come, and that's why I'm here. But there is some credit can be claimed that we are trying to challenge a development paradigm in its home. Green Revolution theory, Green Revolution model started from Haryana and Panjab, and we are trying to challenge that in Haryana and Punjab. My presentation would be largely descriptive, how we have gone about doing it, and I presume all of you here are working for some kind of a intervention, whether in the field of development or in education, so maybe this descriptive thing could be useful for you. I'm not really going to talk about organic farming as such, because I presume in a city where even IT professionals are taking to organic farming, maybe you would know about that. I'm not going to justify why organic farming, etc., nor going to talk about how do we do organic farming. If there are queries and questions about that, we can come back to it later on. But in my presentation, I'm not going to talk about it. But still, a couple of things about organic farming we need to understand. You hear a lot of terms: organic farming, natural farming, biodynamic farming, rishi farming, sajiv farming if you go to Hindi, and so many other words. And each one has his or her, there are differences also there. But broadly, organic farming movement can be divided into two kinds of things, two approaches. One where you have purchased inputs. Like there are companies producing chemical fertilizers, there are companies producing biofertilizers. There are companies producing biopesticides, bio-growth promoters. So that's one approach. The other approach is that we don't buy inputs. Farmer works with home remedies, starts with whatever is around his or her farm. So we call that self-reliant farming. So the kind of intervention I'm involved in is about self-reliant organic farming. We are not promoting any purchased inputs. So that's one major thing. Second thing about organic farming that I would like to share with you is, general belief is that in conventional farming you use chemicals, you use fertilizers, you use pesticides, you use weedicides, you use so on. And organic means you don't use chemical inputs. Yes, that's a fundamental difference. But organic just does not mean no use of chemicals. Organic involves number of other changes also. It can't be monocrop. It has to be multi-crop. It has to be mixed cropping. It has to promote biodiversity. There are differences about irrigation methods. There are differences about so many other things. Hence, that second thing I would like you to keep in mind is that organic farming requires some kind of a relearning. So training becomes important. It's not just stopping chemicals and using traditional organic inputs, but it also requires number of other changes. So training becomes crucial, and that is where our intervention is. Another important question which you as consumers or as if you're coming from farming family or even otherwise, is a question of yield. Is it possible? Is it economically viable? Can it feed the world? Like all such controversial issues, you have evidence on both sides. You can't expect a very clinching kind of evidence. But what I have banked upon is the last thing. There was an international conference organized by UNO in 2007. And it concluded, organic agriculture has the potential to secure a global food supply just as conventional agriculture today but with reduced environmental impacts. So when I started working for organic farming, I started working with this understanding, and our whole strategy was based on this. But we can get back to questions of yield and all those things later on. How did I get involved in it? I don't do farming. I haven't studied agriculture as such. I haven't even studied agriculture economics, by the way. But my interest is in alternative development models. I looked at Soviet Union. I have tried to document certain cooperatives. So I was looking for alternative economic models. So if you are looking at development models, so this binary is not about market or non-market. There are other issues. No, there are other issues of the kind that people like Gandhi took up. Content of development. No, general practice, we don't question technology. No, but I think those questions have to be raised. The content of development, the nature of technology, all these things have to be questioned. So I was sharing that perspective. My knowledge of economics, my knowledge of development theory made me question all these things. So organic agriculture, a different paradigm, a different technology certainly interested me. But when I wanted to look at it, wanted to talk to people, they were either extreme supporters of it who would brook no questions. As one such agriculture scientist asked me, I was looking for comparative yield, whether it would be able to feed the world or not, how much would be the cost, etc., etc. So one of the agriculture scientists who was pro-organic farming would say, one is poison and another is nectar. How can there be any comparison between these two? One is harmful to the body, another is useful, so how can you compare these things? Then on the other side, the other extreme view was Norman Borlaug, who was known as father of Green Revolution the world over. He said, if you are fool enough to believe that organic agriculture can feed you, well, nobody can stop you. So this was the extreme situation, you know. I was looking for answers. As trained economist, I was looking for comparative yields, comparative cost. When you go to buy organic produce, sometimes it's very high. So you ask them, if it's so, why is it priced so high? The general answer would be that, well, the yield is so less. So if it is to be priced so high, then I can't afford it. Ordinary people cannot afford it. So how can it be a sustainable development model? So I had all these questions, and this was not my prime interest, but I was looking for answers. And somewhere around 2006, I realized that there are no ready-made answers. Though there is a literature, but I would have to mine the literature and look for evidence myself. There was an Indian Social Forum in Delhi, and there I met some people and asked these questions in 2006. And there I was told that, yes, all that literature is there, but no ready-made answers, and you do it, mine it, search it, and you'll get your answers. I did that and published a paper in Alternative Economics Survey, Is Alternative Agriculture Revolutionary? Now that convinced me that yes, it is possible. But I didn't know the nuts and bolts of organic farming. How do you do it? Those methods I did not know. But I had to take the second step. If I was theoretically convinced of it, the literature told me that yes, this was possible, then how do you go about doing it? There I met a person, organic farmer, accidentally happened to spend an evening with him. And then I realized that organic farming, organic agriculture is also a science. There is a logic behind it. It is not a set of practices just like that. There is a logic, there is science to it, and one needs to understand it. And that was around 2009, same month, before Holi. Then I thought it was time to interact with farmers and take it to public. So that's the background, why I worked on class character of Soviet Union. I realized that even that doesn't work. I tried to document cooperatives. Some were very successful cooperatives. So my interest is as an alternative development paradigm that questions technology also, and not just ownership structures. And along this side, I was fed up of my job also. I was anyway planning to quit. I was teaching in a public sector university, so I had become entitled for pension, and I knew that I would get enough pension to survive, and I didn't want to teach anymore because I was failing 80% of my own students. So at the end of the year, one thought that if 80% students are clear fails, so what are you doing for the whole year? And prior to that, I had worked in literacy campaign in the same area, Rohtak district, in about 400 villages. So I thought, let me revive my contacts with them and see. Initially we had worked in 400 villages. If 10% villages would be 40 villages, we begin with 40, and if in 20 villages, in 5% villages, we are able to revive our contacts and do something, let me try that. Now, that was not meant just for organic farming. Narega, self-help groups, making village panchayats participatory, all these things were part of the project, part of the plan. In 2009, we started with that, but we couldn't revive many of our old contacts. Some people had moved, some people had grown old, some people now earlier were young, were willing to spare time, now they were married, they had families, etc., etc. So actually Narega, self-help groups, nothing much came out of it. Not many of our activists could be mobilized, but agriculture was one thing, organic agriculture was one thing which picked up. So by default, I didn't choose to concentrate on organic farming. I wanted to work on number of issues related to villages, but by default, I was focusing on agriculture because that is where there was some response. So we really started working with farmers in September 2009. We took them for an exposure visit. Then there was another training soon thereafter. Then there was a third training with a third trainer in December 2009. So there were 3 different trainers, 3 different models, and none of the trainers was willing to enter into a dialogue or answer question. They would say, do this, itna gobar, this has to be done, and that's all. So 3 different models, and one didn't know what to do. But fortunately, in the third training, which was in December 2009, I met a Hyderabad-based agriculture scientist who had roots in Haryana. So he was glad to meet me, somebody from Haryana who's interested in promoting organic farming. I was glad to meet a scientist who was willing to promote organic farming. So we could have a dialogue, we could ask questions, and he was not dogmatic about it. He would explain the science behind it. So that was a great help. And so thereafter, he was our constant guide. We would learn practices from here and there, speak to him, write to him an email, and he would clarify the issues. So that's how we took off. Then, but before continuing with this story, I do wish to share these 2 points. They are not related to organic farming, but how life is. This third training in December 2009, where we met that organic farmer from Haryana, based in Hyderabad, it was organized by a religious dera or ashram, and the priest's room, rather than having pictures of gods and goddesses, had pictures of Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad and all those kinds of things. This was surprising. I didn't expect a priest to have these pictures in his personal room. Second is about Rajasthan. Rajasthan and Haryana are neighbors, though there are no linguistic barriers. I thought it's almost the same culture. The family was hosting the centenary celebrating the centenary of their father or grandfather, they organized a training program for 4 or 5 days, which had some 400, 500 participants. A family which was well off enough to organize it was also serving the food. The family members, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, son and all that, which for Haryana was unthinkable. I mean, a family which can afford to host 400 people for 4 days is also humble enough and caring enough, and there were no shoutings around. I didn't hear, I mean, I can't do it myself. If I have to organize a small program for 100 people for 1 day, somewhere along I would be shouting at somebody that why this is not done and why that's not done. That sort of great experience. I would always value it. Now coming to the organic story, these 3 initial exploratory exposure visits we had planned or we had gone to and attended trainings. One of the farmers who was a friend otherwise, not a, I mean, lower middle class, he had 4 children still studying. He was a small farmer, just 3 acres of land, had a small NGO sector job. I thought if he transits to organic, I can bear half of his risk. I mean, I have faith in him that he will not cheat me. We can work out an arrangement that if he's making 20,000 per acre, and if there are any losses, I'll bear half of it and let him bear half of it. But he didn't even raise the issues, and he simply changed over. So that was inspiring. When we started talking, there were other farmers who were not really into organic, but doing some organic practices. So that encouraged us. And in March 2010, that's the only time we got some public sector funds, we organized a university level seminar or a lecture where we invited this scientist from Hyderabad, Professor O.P. Rupela, for a university seminar, and university funded the travel and all that. And we invited farmers. I had some links in villages. We got a good response. Farmers were willing to explore it. Then in 2010, May 2010, we organized our first local training with resource persons from Punjab. That was another important input for us. In Punjab, this thing had been taken up some 5-10 years before us. There is a, you might have heard of Kheti Virasat Mission, KVM. They had taken it up. Earlier when I would read books, read literature, there would be examples from South, from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. The crops would be different, and when you talk to farmers, they would say, it can happen there, it cannot happen here. It may be possible in chili, it cannot happen in wheat, so on and so forth. But when I heard that people in Punjab are doing it, then I was encouraged. So with Punjab farmers as resource persons, we organized our first training in May 2010. And there was a good participation. But surprisingly, very little from the village where it was organized, the village which was hosting it. Very few of the participants of March 10 seminar who had expressed the desire to learn about it actually turned up for the training. But many more came uninvited. And this is the story which has been repeated all along. Many would promise, but only few delivered. And many more uninvited would come in each workshop. So this is how we began. Our first formal training was in May 2010. Thereafter, we have brought out a booklet in Hindi. There is a whole lot of literature in English about organic farming methods, but not much in Hindi. We brought out a booklet in Hindi, which has received good response. Some 8,000 copies we have sold. We sell it, we don't just distribute it free. And surprisingly, the demand has been coming from Maharashtra, where we actually learned all these things. Obviously, it is not an original work. but neither it is just cut and paste. We have tried to work out it. And thereafter, every year in month of May, we have been organizing one major training, kind of a annual training you can say. 2-3 other programs we organize every year. These are in the nature of local experience sharing. We invite some experts from outside, or exposure visits, or participation in national level workshops. Usually the number of participants are 60 to 70, and almost from as many villages. That means practically one from each village. And they are spread up over about a dozen districts in fact. And less than half of invitees come, but that's made up by the uninvited people who turn up every time, most of them don't turn up the next meeting. So that's the pattern we have been going through. This indicates that people are fed up of conventional farming. They are looking for alternatives, but maybe they are looking for dramatic alternatives, which we don't even promise. And I can see this happening in a couple of cases at least. 2-3 farmers who showed a lot of interest in organic farming, started doing organic farming also, but 6 months down the line, I've stopped farming altogether, I have moved on to something else. So maybe the kind of income and the kind of lifestyle that they were expecting or want to live, agriculture, whether organic or inorganic, doesn't provide that. So that's one thing. Initially, for 1 or 2 years, we were proactively going to villages, holding motivational meetings, trying to mobilize people. But now for last 2-3 years, we have stopped doing that. Now our focus is those of the farmers who have shifted over to organic farming. We are concentrating on them, trying to ensure that they adopt all the practices that have to be adopted and that they can show good results. Rather than doing random mobilization, which we did in initial 2 years, now for last 2-3 years we are concentrating. We are not doing that proactively. Anybody who invites us, we do go there for training. We have gone to other states also. I have gone to Bihar, I have gone to Uttarakhand, but that's not what we proactively seek. What we proactively try to do is work with farmers who are already involved, who have decided to shift over and see if they can get good results. And somebody asked me, how many farmers? Very few. But the number is increasing. And in 2015, for the first time, we started receiving phone calls from unknown people. For the first time, farmers are showing interest in asking, when are you holding next training? We want to learn about it. How do we do it? Where do we go for it? In 2015, there was a major conference in Chandigarh. We were able to mobilize 250 paid registered participants who paid 750 rupees plus travel charges. So the interest is increasing. Our average earlier was 60 to 70 farmers, but the last workshop that we held in late 2015, there were more than 150 farmers. Now that generation is also showing interest, which is active on WhatsApp and email and Facebook and those kinds of things. So that's a thing. But in terms of actual numbers who have shifted, only about a dozen have shifted totally. That means whatever their total land holdings. And our focus is on small farmers, those with land holdings of 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, 5 acres. There have been the kind of new farmers who quit their IT jobs and moved on to farming, or they have 100 acres of land holdings, 200 acres of land holdings. We are not really interacting with them. We are working basically with small farmers, those who depend on agriculture as a livelihood. So we have about a dozen farmers who are converted all their land holdings, another 100 maybe who are in touch with us, who are doing it parallel farming. On 2 acres or 1 acre, they are doing organic farming, and another, a part of their land holdings, they are persisting with chemical farming. And I can say that there would be at least 100 more who are not in regular touch, but who are doing this kind of a parallel farming. And as I said, this excludes new age IT sector farmers in neighborhood of Delhi, Gurgaon, Faridabad. We are not working in that area. Recently, we had a first PGS certified organic farmers group. Now some clusters are developing. As initially I said, there were 60-70 participants, almost from 60-70 villages. But now slowly some clusters are developing. And for PGS, Participatory Guarantee Scheme certification, you need a cluster or a group of farmers. Now that thing is emerging. And another good thing is, hardly anyone has reverted back to chemical farming. Anyone who began with organic farming, if he has not totally shifted to organic farming, he is persisting with it, and the area under organic farming is increasing. Hardly one can think of 1 or 2 examples. Those who have quit agriculture, that's a different thing. But otherwise, they have not moved on to chemical farming. Our strategy was, we never intended nor hoped, we want, but we didn't hope to make it a mass movement. Obviously, we want that it becomes a mass movement, but we didn't expect to make it a mass movement. We just wanted to see, first to check it for ourselves, whether it is really viable, whether it does give the results that are claimed in literature that it gives, and to create local model farms. Because when you tell people in Haryana that somebody in Bangalore is doing it, somebody in Hyderabad is doing it, it doesn't make an impression. But if we are able to give local examples, then maybe we can make a, and once an advocacy working with the state is possible only when farmers themselves start demanding organic. And that is possible if they see some local examples. So that was our model. And the second important feature of our model is, our assumption is that done right, yield would be comparable. If we do it properly with all the things that are required for organic farming, then yield should be comparable. So our focus has been on production and not on marketing as such. We have not helped farmers with marketing and things like that on this understanding. We have also not worked on traditional seeds, which are really required if you want to promote healthy and nutritious food. You have to move on to traditional seeds. But we have as yet not worked on it, because recommending different seeds is a risky business. You have to test whether they, in your climatic conditions, they would work or not, and we didn't want to take that risk. As to real yields, unfortunately, we have not as yet achieved comparable yields also. As I said, our whole model is based on the assumption that if you do right, the yield should be comparable. But we haven't as yet achieved those comparable yield. But still we persist with that assumption. And there are 2 reasons for it. I asked one of the farmers, are you getting comparable yield? He said, no. I said, then why are you persisting with it? You are dependent on agriculture. If you are not able to get a comparable yield, then why are you persisting with it? Why don't you stop it? Because we are not in any way financially supporting you or all those things. He said, I have not done all that you had suggested. And if still the soil gives this much yield, if I do all things right, I am hopeful that I would be able to do it. He said, at that point of time, there was a sugar cane in his field. He said, at least 10 mistakes I can identify which I have made in doing it in organic way. If I were to correct those things, we should be able to do it. So that is why we still persist with the understanding that if done right, yield would be comparable. In this January, we organized an exposure visit to Maharashtra. And at end of the exposure visit, one of our farmers said, no more exposure visits for me. Now is the time to do it. the learning or showing, because what we had been talking of, as I said initially, mixed farming, etc., irrigation method has to change, seed rate has to change, but they were not really practicing all those things. In Maharashtra, when they saw those things happening with their own eyes, 10 different crops standing in one field, when they saw it, then while going back they said, no more exposure visit for us. Now it's time to do it. We are hopeful that, as I said, marketing we have not really focused on for two reasons. One, the basic premise, if the yield is comparable, then there is no special need for marketing support. They would get it as much as chemical they are getting it. And the secondly, we did not have the wherewithal to do the marketing part. You need finances for market and you need human resources also. Now we do the training and we don't assure them that we'll buy your product or anything. So we get the right feedback. No, a little bit of chemical was used. My brother did not agree to it and he said my wife did not agree to it. But if we were assuring them a marketing support, we would not get these honest answers. For that, we would have to frequently visit their farms, keep in much more regular contact, which we are not in a position to do it. So we have not been doing marketing support as a basic strategy. But because I was teaching in a university and fellow colleagues said, you are these days promoting organic farming, why don't you get us this? So we did some kind of a marketing also a little bit, and the demand is increasing. People are willing to pay a higher price for it, provided they are assured of the quality. If they are assured that it is really organic, people are willing to pay for it. Now, some of our farmers, as I said, one group has become a certified organic farmers, so they have started selling in Delhi. And when they started selling it in Delhi, the other farmers said that you are spoiling the market, you are charging such low prices. In Rohtak, in small towns, the price that they are charging appears to be too high. Normal customers are not willing to buy it. And in Delhi or Gurgaon market, it is the other way around. They are saying, it's so low. And now our farmers are saying, if those people are willing to pay these sky high prices, why not charge them? So they recently went for a marketing event and they were just offloading their things and somebody asked, what is the price? They hadn't even thought of what price they are going to charge. They said, carrots, 100 rupees. Nobody bargained with them, nobody asked them question and then simply buy it. So they sold the whole lot at 100 rupees. And now they are saying, okay, if the people are willing to buy for it, why not? I mean, what's the harm in it? If they can pay it, why not? If I ask them to, you should charge a reasonable price, and so these are issues that are coming up. Another thing that is happening is, number of people are interested in taking up organic marketing. Because Rohtak is just next to Delhi. So number of people come that get us, we have opened up a shop, we want to open an outlet, get us some produce and we want to sell it. I said, we don't have these things. If you really want to market organic, you would have to promote organic farming. You would have to work with farmers, train them. Only then you would get a marketable surplus. But they just want to open an outlet and sell it without working with farmers. That's a dangerous trend, because if they're not working with farmers, then they cannot really have genuine supplies. But number of people are coming for marketing of organic produce. Let's see how does it move on. About our organizational structures and how we have been doing it. It's an unregistered organization, unfunded organization. And an informal group works on it. And those farmers who have totally converted, about a dozen of them, and a few consumers or promoters, That's an informal committee. We plan our activities. We once meet to plan the activity, and once we meet to review how did we go about it. That's how it has been functioning. In fact, for 3 years we did not even have a name. Now we call ourselves Kudarti Kheti Abhiyan. It is not a registered body as yet, because I insisted that you get it registered when you start taking the responsibility for it. If I have to do the whole thing, then let it be unregistered. If it is a kind of a basically one person thing, then why give it a fancy name and a registration and all those things? When you take over and do the things, then you can get it registered. So as yet, it is an unregistered organization. We call ourselves now Kudarti Kheti Abhiyan. And, but good part is now about a dozen, 15 persons own up this program, and we organize and we plan things. Regarding funding, from the very beginning, I had this understanding that mobilizing funding is a difficult business from government sources or even otherwise, so we didn't even try it. We don't even hold any special fund mobilizations. We organize our events and we request voluntary contribution from the participants themselves. We don't go around collecting funds from others also. There are no fees, but we do ask for voluntary contribution, and we have been managing like that for last 4 or 5 years. Sometimes there is a shortfall of couple of thousands, sometimes there is some excess, so that's how we have been managing it. All outside travel, everybody pays for it. For example, we came to Maharashtra for Maharashtra visits. Farmers paid for their, I paid for my travel costs. So that is how we have been doing it. And without funding, we have been able to work. And it's not that I had to spend a lot of money from my pocket, no. People do contribute. What have been our failures? One, besides those training and workshops, we have not been able to maintain live contact with farmers. Very little. Actual farms have been visited or even phone calls made. If we had full-time employees, maybe we could do it. And we didn't, of course, have the funds to have full-time employees, but we couldn't even think of a person who could be employed. If we could come across a person who could be employed, maybe we could generate the funds also. But we couldn't come across. This issue cropped up number of times amongst us that let's hire somebody. I would always ask, whom? Can you name somebody? Because those who are actual farmers, they are not willing to take up the job. They have to work on their farms. And anyone else, we didn't come across it. Another, of course, failure is that the numbers are small. No model farms have been set up as of now. But two crucial failures are, we have not been able to involve either the official machinery or farmers' organizations or NGOs. We have tried to involve official machinery. We would always send them an email or initially go also to the office and give the letter, come. No. We have not been able to involve even farmers' organizations. The example Professor Yadav was giving, that we took some farmers and they said that, why did you buy the ticket? Those farmers were from a farmers' organization only. We took them once for a training workshop, but we have not managed to involve farmers' organizations. And what is rather surprising for me is, we have not been able to involve even other organizations who are claimed to be working for social change, and they are working for social change. But we have not been able to involve them in this whole thing. And we have not been able to take up other social issues. Of course, even farming itself has a number of issues. Organic is just one part of it. But we hardly get enough time to discuss organic production related issues, that there is no time to, they come 1 hour late, then they have to leave early. So there is, and when somebody starts speaking, then they would go on for 20 minutes. And finally they said, now it's time to go. So we have not been able to take up even other issues related to organic farming. Right now in Hyderabad, from tomorrow onwards, there is a 3-day Kisan Swaraj Sammelan. But we are we have 5 of us are attending that convention, but those issues, the other issues related to agriculture or other issues related to their lives. Haryana recently went through a turmoil. You must have read in the media. But we are nowhere there to intervene in that or take a position on that. So that's, and then involvement of women farmers. We have as yet not reached them. So these are some of the significant failures. On the whole, we have not as yet set model forms. We cannot claim that our yields are comparable, but journey continues. Farmers are enthusiastic about. Those who have shifted, those who have tried, they are persisting with that. And the core team has expanded. It began as an individual enterprise, but as I said, now at least 15, 20 people own up in their own areas. They are taking up these things. And hopefully this year or maybe next year, we should be able to have good results also. Because Maharashtra visit, there was nothing new to be learned in Maharashtra visit. We were saying all those things in our own trainings. All those things are there in our booklet, but they have never seen it with their own eyes. During Maharashtra visit, exposure with Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, they could see those things with their own eye. Just to give you one example, maybe this is true for South also. Electricity is unreliable, irregular. Nobody wants to be awake the whole night to irrigate the field. So they have a system of electronic device called watchman. So whenever electricity comes, the tube will start automatically. You don't have to switch it on. So they put on the watchman and go home. And next day when they come back, then they see, switch it off, or if the electricity continues for that much time, so the tube will keep pushing water for that much time, and the field would be over-irrigated. They never realized that it has some harmful consequences also. They would have even 2 acres of farm as one irrigation channel with one block. When they came to organic farmers of Maharashtra, one block for irrigation would not be larger than this platform on which I am standing. They were shocked. Haryanvi organic farmers even would have 2-acre huge plot as one irrigation unit. So they have learned some of these things. Hopefully they promise to implement, and soon we should have model farms. There are a couple of general things other than organic farming. Let me take up that, and with that I'm finished. There has to be a committed core to initiate and provide continuity. And the core has to really focus on that. But things only move forward when many more other people join it. They are not fully devoted to it, but they own it up, they participate in it. Only then things start moving. And for that, the idea must be workable on the ground. Often it is the other way around. What we wish to promote is often half-baked. It may be well-meaning, it may be useful, but it is not based on ground realities. For example, we as yet don't have a really firm technical package to promote. We are still learning, and we have been trying to promote it for 5 years. So that's one major problem we have, is that often what we are promoting is not really fully grounded in reality. It is unavoidable. Of course, when you try it on the ground, only then you realize that it doesn't work. It has to be changed. You cannot really first wait to have a full-fledged model and then start implementing. But that has its own problems. And so at least if we are aware of it, that our idea itself may be half-baked, then we may be able to handle the situation better. And to win confidence and convince others of sincerity, your sincerity, is a major task. And it takes time. You can't win confidence just like that. Even in literacy campaign, we had this experience. When we began, we were called, in Hindi they would say, बूढ़ों को पढ़ाने वाले, a people who teach old people. But soon, it shifted to औरतों को पढ़ाने वाले. But this shift from teaching old people to teaching women, it takes time. You can interact with women only after a certain, if you have won their confidence and sincerity. And it takes time. So, be prepared for a long haul if you really want to social intervention. And don't expect quick results. And as I give you a couple of examples, results don't depend on your inputs alone. There can be unexpected bottlenecks, and there can be unexpected sources of strength and support. So be prepared for that. And such persistence is only possible if you think it's really important for society. Doing it just for a job, doing it for a profitability is too much to ask for. You can't have that kind of a persistence just for job, just for profitability. But if you think it's really important for society, then you would have that kind of a persistence. And with that kind of a persistence only, you can really work for social change and intervene in society. That's my email ID and my address. Any clarifications?
Maharashtra and MP, which are the places did you go to?
We basically, it was centered in Varta, and then we went district Subhash Sharma from Jawaharlal, then Chesna Vikas in Varta itself, and then a couple of other things in Varta. Then in Madhya Pradesh, we went to Deepak Station.
So I have 5 sets of questions.
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah. So in your slide, you had stated that your principal is not taking external funding, right? So in case of flyers that are handed out, which obviously you're handing out for free, the training that maybe as people are volunteering for training, they have set up everything as a minimum cost. And it's not always the travel that really is into it. So why is it that the principle of external funding is something that you don't follow? First question. Second question is for small farmers, many times we have seen that many farmers, they leave. So maybe for the small farmers, it is very difficult to acquire the particular material that is required for organic farming. Hence they leave. So for them, they require any kind of agency to be helping them. So can you think about any agency approach to help them for this little funding for organic farming for small farmers? Third, some farmers have organic farming and parallelly they have the chemical farming. So if it is that the organic farming is giving them a proper way of living, if I say it that way, so why is it that they're still continuing the chemical farming parallelly? And the fourth question is, when it comes to markets, when you spoke about whatever the people will pay, I will charge that much. So it's a very capitalistic approach that is being seen. So in such a kind of a capitalistic approach, are you not planning to have a fixed price mechanism where there's universal trading that takes place? And the last question in Haryana, have you faced any kind of caste issue while giving some training sessions or farming related activities?
Coming to funding, we are not opposed to funding. It's difficult mobilizing funding. So if some funding organizations were to appreciate this work and provide some funding, we have no objections to it. But running after mobilizing funds is something difficult, people. That's one. So it's not just funding is bad, all funding is bad, no. But getting funds, mobilizing funds is a difficult thing, so we kind of excluded those difficult things. Of course, agriculture department should be doing it. Universities are supposed to do these kinds of research, but they are not doing it. That's why people like us have to come forward to do it. I'm not an agriculture scientist. I'm not even a farmer. If agriculture scientists had taken it up, maybe they would have achieved a better success also, sooner also. Because I have to pick up these things along the way. I didn't know farming. So funding and these kinds of sports are useful provided they are available. But if government is not providing it, they are not even attending those trainings. In fact, I saw in a newspaper, of course the next day, that previous day there was a training organized on organic farming by agriculture department. I said, oh, that's great. Next day, I went to them and I said, you organized this training yesterday and it was great. We are also interested in it. He looked at me and then he asked, who are you, etc., etc. And then he said, you are also a professor, I am also a professor. So let's be honest about it. This organic does not work. He is the trainer. Formally, he has organized a training 2 days ago. But he says, let's be honest, it doesn't work. There are people at the top are stupid and fools. They plan these things, we have to organize it, and we have done it. Then I tried to explain it to him that no. He said, okay, stop it. I'll speak to the person in the agriculture university itself who's heading it. He will explain this. He immediately dialed a number and put me to a person who was in charge of organic farming in Hisar Agriculture University. And he also on phone started to convince me it's okay for your family consumption, but for farmer it doesn't work. No, we would want help from them, but that's not forthcoming. So the issue is to run after funds or to manage without funds. And secondly, of course, minimum funds are required. Minimum funds are required. But if I'm willing to put up my time for it, and if I have the money, I should also be willing to put up my money also for it, if I have it. And I have it. I mean, I get that much. So it's just that kind of a thing. And the good point is, I didn't really have to spend much. I had to take that risk that if this workshop costs 10,000 rupees, and if no donations come, then I end up spending 10,000 rupees. I had to just take that risk. I didn't have to actually spend those 10,000. People did give the money. Of course, if there was a government support or some funding support was there. Obviously, if they are continuing with parallel farming, that means that organic is not giving as yet good results. And I said it in so many words, that we haven't as yet received comparable yields. But the reasons are, as I said, farmers have not adopted the whole set of practices, one. Secondly, for North, wheat is the benchmark crop. And wheat is not the benchmark crop for Maharashtra or Gujarat or Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu or Kerala, where these organic practices have evolved. Whatever the techniques and methods that we are using have actually evolved in this region. So for wheat, the really practices would emerge when Haryana, Panjab, UP farmers would start doing it. Maharashtra farmers or Kerala farmers cannot tell us how to grow wheat. And without wheat, nothing will work in North India or in Haryana and Punjab, because that's the benchmark thing. So yes, as yet we have not achieved it. But as I said, I asked this question to a couple of farmers, that why you are persisting with it? We are honest, I mean, we are not paying you anything, and you are dependent on agriculture. Their answer was, couple of answers were. One, the day we have shifted to organic farming, our medical expenses have come down. We hardly eat any tablet now. We hardly go to a doctor. That is good enough for us. That's one thing. And the second is, as another farmer put it, we haven't implemented 1/4 of what you had suggested. if with that much the farms give this much yield, we hope that next year, no, like I said, next year maybe we would have a model farm. Farmers are also hoping that maybe next year the yield would be good. And in some cases it is good. For example, last season, the weather was very bad. The crops were all spoiled. And I visited a farm and I could see why farmer commits suicide. I mean, if the whole plot, 1 acre plot, has hardly couple of plants alive, so one can see. I asked them, but he said, we are still better than chemical farming. So in some situations, they are even getting better results. The yield anyway was low because the weather was bad, but at least they had not spent any money. There was zero cost. And they said they would at least get a quintal out of it. The chemical farmers would not get even that. So in some cases, they are even getting better yields, but it's a question of average. And that too for wheat. Though for last year, one of our farmers even got a record yield of 53 man, we call it, something like 22 quintals, which is high by even chemical standards for our area. But these are, isolated examples. We have to get them at average level, then things will move. Did I leave out any question? Caste. Most of the land holdings in our place, Dalits don't have any land holdings. It is only non-Dalits who have land. Dalits, scheduled castes, are farm hands. They are not farm owners. Generally, maybe one person in a village or something like that. That's the general practice. So, in that sense, we are working basically with upper caste or general caste people, so caste issues that way don't come up. But they do come up indirectly, because organic farming requires labor. And labor, they are not willing to pay the labor. And then that kind of a thing that these people are not willing to work, they charge so much, they don't do anything, they have, those kinds of issues are there. But otherwise, that kind of a caste conflict directly does not come into the picture, because most of the people who come for the training and who are farmers are from upper castes. Of course, that's an issue, that they are willing to sell at 100 rupees. That's an issue. We keep raising these issues with them. I keep raising my perspective that it should be a fixed price. Because when I visited Kerala for the first time, that's what impressed me. I went to a shop to buy an umbrella, and he said 255 rupees. Then he made out that I was a non-Malayali, and then he asked me, why are you here? And so we developed, I said, I came for that program. Oh, I know that. I mean, there were some links. He offered me tea and all that. And then he wouldn't charge me anything. He said, you are a guest and you take it like that. I of course said that, no. He finally took the payment and took exactly 255 rupees. Not even 250 rupees. So that kind of a fixed price is something which I appreciate. Of course, my perspective with farmers is same, that you have a fixed price and have a genuine price. Don't do that kind of a bargaining. But these are issues which are cropping up. There is a wild fruit which in villages, it's just free. It's just free. You don't, you can't imagine buying or selling it. They went to Delhi and sold it at 400 rupees a kg. Because people are willing to buy for it. So that's an issue. So as I said, that's one of our failures, that these larger social concerns, the larger social issues, we have not as yet been able to bring it into dialogue. That's a failure as yet. But don't know how to go about doing it. We hope that once this agriculture production part, the technical part thing stabilizes, then maybe we would be able to take up some other issues also.
So we have seen that
So it's very easy to declare them organic. Anyway, they are not using chemicals. Chemicals haven't reached those places. And chemicals to be used, assured irrigation is must. Only then chemicals can be used. If the assured irrigation is not there, then you cannot use chemicals. So it is easier to move to organic when you are either not using chemicals anyway, or you are using only small quantities of chemicals. But it is difficult to shift over when you have been using chemicals for years and using huge quantities of chemicals. So northeast area or hilly areas, many of them are by default organic. So you are just labeling them organic, they were anyway organic. Yeah.
Sir, you are working with a subsistence farming or marginal farmers who are having 1 acre or 2 acres. It's very easy to convince them, okay, you are going to consume this produce, so go for organic. Have you ever thought of people who are going to market, selling their product to the market, to convince them for going for organic farming? And what are difficulties you're facing in that?
Actually, the farmers are not willing to experiment, not willing to adopt it. Even small farmers would give you 10 reasons why they cannot do it, and large farmers would give 10 reasons why they cannot do it. Large farmers would say, it is easy for small farmer to do it because it is just 2 acres. How do I handle 20 acres or 50 acres? And the small farmer would say, he has 100 acres. What does he lose if nothing comes up for 1 year or 2 years? How can I do it? So problems are both ends, and organic can work both for small farmers and for large farmers. Secondly, we are not really working with subsistence farmers. It is small farmers. There are 5 acres, 10 acres, 14 acres, 15 acres. So marketing is an issue for them also. So it's not just subsistence farming. There is no really subsistence farming. Those who have very small acres, very small pieces of land, they then lease out their land and do something else. So marketing is an issue for them, and we are working with farmers even up to 10 acres or 20 acres or that kind of a thing. Yeah.
I'm asking for my knowledge. If you have to do organic farming, then how much longer does it take than chemical farming for the produce to and for you to harvest?
The claim would be, if you do it right, then the first crop should give you a comparable yield. It doesn't take time to recover, provided you do it right. I'll give you one example. The farm that we visited, Subhash Sharma's farm in Yavatmal, he had earlier another piece of land. Due to some family dispute or some family division or whatever reasons, that piece of land was gone from his possession. So he bought another piece of land, afresh, and started cultivation on that. But by that time he had acquired that experience. No trial and error was required. So from the very first year, he was able to get good results. So it's a question of really doing it the right way. As I said, organic is not simply stopping the chemical usage. Organic involves number of other changes also. Those changes have to be learnt and mastered. That may take time. And so first is this, if you do it right, then the very first crop can be good enough. Secondly, even if you don't do it that full organic in the sense of practicing all organic practices. If you do just monocropping without chemicals, then even official studies show that 3rd year onwards, even in those circumstances, you are able to get comparable yields. ICRIS at Hyderabad, Dr. O.P. Rupela, who was our advisor, he said just first year was a loss, 2nd year onwards, we were at par. Central Cotton Research Institute, Nagpur, has full-fledged studies. 3rd year onwards, proper and comparable yields and profitability. There is another project now, Modipuram Farm Systems Study Institute or something like that. They are doing it at number of places. They are getting good yields. typical North Indian crops, cereals, that is wheat, rice, bajra, then vegetables also, orchards, quinoa, citrus fruit. These are the.
The reason I ask this question is because KVM, although they work really good in Punjab, I think that they're not been able to change the crop rotation pattern, as in they're majorly doing wheat and paddy.
That's what I said, that we have not as yet been able to do all those things. Now farmers have realized that when they saw with their own eyes that mixed cropping is possible, and then when they saw those farmers who were very happy, satisfied, and the crop seems to be good, now they are thinking in terms of shifting to the organic. Changing the crop cycle also. So some farmers are now taking pulses also. So that is why I said that we have not really implemented fully organic things in the sense of changing all these things. Even we did not have the technical know-how. Now we have got some advice that rice can be followed by gram, and then rather than taking the wheat, and next year don't take rice, take pulses, and then take wheat. So 1 year take rice, and another year take wheat. So maybe in due course we'll practice some of these things.
Two things which is pending. One is that there is a majority part of India where there has been a continuation of some form of organic knowledge. It has mainly come directly from the community itself. The community has built a huge amount of knowledge set is actually coming through various pockets. It seems very surprising that Haryana probably was lacking in that sort of knowledge where the community could not build up even though you provided a platform. That is one. The second one is that do you see that the generation next, or what is your perception based on your interactions, the generation next would actually continue farming, or do they feel that they want to move out into something more interesting?
Second thing is, coming to the first question, Haryana, Punjab, they are where these are the places where green revolution started. So we have been using chemicals since 60s and at massive levels. So maybe a whole generation, 2 generations have gone. Present set of farmers have not seen those chemical-free days. So that's one reason. And in Maharashtra, one of the Maharashtra trainers, when he came to North India, and he asked us to dig the earth and said, how long will the soil go on? We said, it will go on maybe 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. He said that is why you are still able to survive with chemicals. Because in Maharashtra, topsoil is just few feet, then it's rocky terrain, and that is why the negative consequences of green revolution were visible to us much earlier. And as yet they are not visible to North India. So that's one reason that Haryana, because of soil conditions, and there is a wheat and rice are procured by government. If wheat and rice is not procured, the roads are, it becomes a political issue. So that is why they have shifted to wheat and rice. So really that the knowledge in the community is not there. I was surprised. In Wardha region, we could find very few tractors, and even chemical farmers were using bullocks and all that. It's almost vanished in North India, in Haryana, Punjab. It's all tractors. So shifting to bullocks is going to be a difficult thing. Now, as regard your second question, whether the next generation would continue with organic farming or not. Actually, for next generation, there are not very many options either. I mean, even they don't, I mean, if you have a very good education from a good place, then you have a placement opportunities. In a, honestly, I used to teach in a state level university. whenever a student would come and tell me that he or she has got a job, one of my spontaneous question was, when did you do your MA? Because immediately after MA, nobody gets a job. So it is 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years after MA, you are getting your jobs, if at all you are getting it. So this is, for my university, this would be if some student comes and tells me that, sir, I have got this job, my next question would be that, when did you do your MA? We celebrated, one of our students got into IPS after 7 years. I said, how many students can survive for 7 years waiting for a job to arrive? So obviously, as I said, agriculture has many more important issues. Organic is just one part of it. We realize we are doing it with a limited thing. But now I realize that younger people are also coming up. That WhatsApp crowd and all that crowd is also taking interest in it. And for last 2015 onwards, there has been and even people are willing to purchase also. People want to buy organic. Only thing is they should be assured that it is real organic. Thank you very much.
So I basically want to put in some words in gratitude to you. One is that, in the recent times, I haven't seen a talk this relevant to our students. Not because the content was to do with agriculture, which is in very many ways central to the country and our society, but the message of the needed conviction and perseverance that is needed for a person who aspires for social change. Second reason, coming from the hotbed of neoliberal agriculture, it's quite refreshing to see that some success stories and some efforts coming from people like you. And thirdly, it's a constant disappointment when you see the higher education institutions in agriculture even now talk about the chemical intensive practicing farmers as progressive farmers and organic farmers as traditional farmers. I have been having these battles when we invite them for workshops and discussions. So seeing people actually going beyond the need to even fight that battle, not bothered about the scientific farming or scientific evidence for actually being active in this field itself is an encouragement. And fourthly, we have a course here which is called Agrarian Concerns, Food Security and Sustainability in Contemporary India. I wish I knew you when I taught it last season, and I really wish we can get you for at least a few lectures next time we offer. Thank you very much, Rajinder.